Cura, 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 cura corazón. Cura, cura, cura. Namaste, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Blooming Lotus Healing Channel. My name is Jikara, and I'm a spiritual healing facilitator. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about Mars retrograde. I'm going to be telling you some intense stories in regards to drama that's been happening in my life, that's been showing up throughout this Mars retrograde. So before we get started, let's go ahead and open the space. Taking this moment to thank the ancestors of the land for allowing me to be here, and my ancestors and your ancestors, calling in our spirit guides, our spirit team, those who are for the highest good and the highest good of all, opening the sacred space for sharing, for storytelling, and for heart opening. Thank you, Spirit, for this opportunity to share and to let the energy flow. So I am going to pull a card for today. Spirit, what message do we want to infuse this video with for the conversation about Mars retrograde? Okay. We got the card of mold, which is representing everything that has to do with external influences and having unhealthy influences that come into our space. So we want to definitely talk about this, because this is definitely what Mars retrograde has been specifically for me. And I have noticed that a lot of people who have been, who are in this journey on this planet, we don't exist in a vacuum. We're all kind of experiencing the energy of Mars retrograde a little differently. And so for those who don't know, Mars retrograde started in this month, December 6th, 2024. It's going to be ongoing until February 23rd of 2025. So you really want to brace yourself. So I'm looking at the chart information here on the app that I have here, where I check my charts at, and this is indicating that Mars currently is in the planet. It's in the sign of Leo. Mars is the planet of action, energy, and motivation. Spends about 7 to 8 weeks in each sign, unless it's retrograde. Right now, it's a retrograde. With Mars in Leo, for you and for everyone, this energy is creative and expressive, which is great. So there's a lot of creative energy, a lot of expression, a lot of drama. Leo. When I think about a Leo, there's a lot of drama, a lot of intensity there. And so there is great desire to pursue pleasurable activities and recreation. Anything that allows you to convey your sense of self is encouraged. So there's a lot of maybe self-centered type of activities or inclinations that we may be experiencing right now. And of course, this is also indicating that romance is stimulated, as it is a desire of physical love making. You might also encounter more conflicts with children or lovers. And oh my goodness, when I tell you the conflicts have been showing up in my field, I am telling you, they have been showing up. And, and it's interesting because, the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I had this moment where I was like feeling shame around this. Because I teach the beloved method. I teach, healing the energy cords between, teach people to tap into the records and heal energy cords between them and other people. And I really talk about, how can we show up from the heart space? How can we show up from a place of love when we are in these situations? And it can be very challenging when you are in the trenches. It can get so challenging to even try to even show up from a place of love and compassion, because if you're triggered, then you're kind of like in the triggers, right? And you're in your feelings and you're in your emotions. There's upheaval and all of this. So if you are going through it right now, I just want you to know that we're here. we're here in the trenches, we're doing this, we're moving through this insanity. It's okay. And if you haven't felt it, or you haven't felt it yet, well, good for you. I hope that you don't get to feel it. But if you are someone who's going through this, please know that you're not alone. We are going through this together. And for that reason, actually, I did do a clearing, a collective clearing for Mars retrograde, which I will be posting somewhere on the description below. I'll be posting it there so that you can listen to it. It'll be like a small donation, suggested donation there, and you can just go in there and download that and listen to the clearing. And the reason why I did that was because I myself, when I was going through the upheaval, which I'll tell you the story in a minute, I was like, oh my God, this is definitely conflict and war, and Mars is all about war, conflict, and I mean, of course, desire and other things, but it was like I could feel that energy of war like being brought up for me energetically. And I was like, okay, this is this is what it's alive for me. Let me see if I can clear something. And there was definitely programs at the collective level that I needed to clear for myself. And so I felt like, okay, if I need to clear this, then obviously I'm holding my crystal. This is my super seven, y'all. If if I need to do this for myself, then obviously I'm sure other people might need it. So I'm doing this super accessible for you guys, so you can just go in, download it, listen to it as many times as you need, so that you can really get the support and the clearing that you need there. And so yeah, so let me just go back to the whole thing. So as y'all know, I am married. I'm married into an Indian family. I'm Venezuela. I'm from South America, and my husband is was born and raised here, and he comes from an Indian family. And so, things are different. When you're marrying two different like even just marrying in general, even if you're within the same culture, within the same religion and everything, there are challenges. It's just part of the deal, right? Because each household is kind of like its own world, right? And so that comes with the challenges, but then you also have the added aspect of the culture, which can get even more challenging sometimes. And I knew this coming into to my marriage. I knew that this was going to be something that we were going to have to work through, but I knew that our ancestors were supporting us. When we did our ayahuasca ceremony before we got married, which I will be posting a link to that on the description below as well, so you can watch that video and watch about what happened on that. But one of the things that I remember from that was the fact that I felt our ancestors, like literally the shaman, like we sat, like even before we actually got married, like I felt like we got married energetically through that shamanic journey that we took by taking Mama Aya here in Florida. So it was like really beautiful, and I knew that our ancestors were present. I also did an altar for an offering for our ancestors when when we got married, like officially and everything. Like we were definitely celebrating, and our ancestors were celebrating. So I know energetically that our ancestors are celebrating this thing that we have, right? And so like, but that doesn't mean that that's the case with the living ancestors, right? Like some of the when I talk about living ancestors, I'm talking about our parents, our uncles, or that type of stuff. So there's this part of the culture when it comes down to the Indian culture where there's this really difficult aspect of being a woman coming into a household that is Indian, because there's this expectation of how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be very, kind of like more submissive, especially by the mother-in-law. Like my husband definitely doesn't subscribe to that. Like it doesn't. But like with my mother-in-law, she has this perspective of like, I'm supposed to do things her way, and I have to kind of like do, and like there's like the difficulties that we have are more like interpersonal, in the sense of like even personality wise. Like I feel like there's certain aspects of herself that that are like not willing to open up, even if she like even like beyond the culture. I feel like personality wise. And so from the beginning, it's been difficult, it's been rough to kind of foster and cultivate a relationship with her, because there's no opening on her end to kind of like um have a conversation and listen and receive me in any way. Like it's always like talking at me, or just, giving her opinions and judgments, and not really opening up, and heart to heart type of thing, right? And so like I operate from a different place, and for me it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult for me to kind of, because I am so pro connecting from the heart, and being vulnerable and open, and like even here, like on my channel, like I'm here open and vulnerable with you guys. Like I've shared so many stories with you guys that a lot of people will be like, oh my god, that's oversharing, right? And so, but at the same time, I feel like if you don't talk about these things and you don't normalize it for people, then people don't know that maybe what they're going through is not, it's that they're not alone, right? Like I feel like when we have these conversations, these storytelling moments, we are able to really connect with each other in a way that allow us to really feel into each other's humanity, right? And so long story short, we already have like a very difficult thing. My husband and I, we've been going to therapy. It's not even about, it's really been because of the influences that the challenges that we've had in regards to her, and how she really just doesn't want to respect our boundaries, and it's just been a really difficult thing. And here I am, like feeling a lot of shame around this, because I was like, oh my gosh, like this, I haven't even been able to fix this. And like, how do I fix this? Coming from that, fixer, because I'm in human design, I'm a 5-1, and I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to be able to resolve things, solve problems. And this is like the one problem I haven't been able to solve, right? Like I even like my challenging relationship with my mom, I've been able to solve or resolve at some point, like come into a resolution, right? And like there's been like moments where yeah, we kind of go back and forth with our relationship, but it's overall like the overarching theme with my mom has gotten better, which I'm grateful for. And that doesn't mean that she has changed. It just means that I have changed in the way that I perceive her and everything, right? And so, or even the way that I receive her, for whatever reason, it's just been difficult for me to do that with my mother-in-law. And part of it is because it's hard to really open your heart when you don't feel love from the other person. You feel rejection, you feel all of this negativity from the other person. Like there's been so many times where there's like a refusal of even acknowledgement, or just like judgment, or even talking negatively about my body and my health. And I haven't really mentioned much here on the channel, but I've been dealing with a chronic health immune system issue for since 2018. They couldn't figure out what it was. Finally, this year, I got diagnosed with lupus, and I've been taking my time. That's the reason why I've been taking the step back to take care of my health and figure out what to do, and what is my new normal here, right? And so there's been a lot of judgment around that for me, like, oh, because I've been like, I'm not super healthy, like there's something wrong with me, right? Like on her part towards me. And so it's been difficult for me to kind of like be open and loving towards her because of that, because it's like, oh my gosh, like like I wouldn't do that to you, right? Like I wouldn't be treating anyone like that, right? But for whatever reason, that's just the way I'm being received, or I'm not even being received. And so like that's been a challenge. And then it's interesting because I've had to kind of create sort of like a lot of space between me and her, so we don't really spend a lot of time together. And the reason why is because there comes a point where there's one of the things that I learned growing up as a Catholic is that, oh, you have to give opportunities. And that's great. It's a good idea to give opportunities when the person on the other side is willing, is willing to make changes, is willing to listen to you, is willing to really work with you, alongside with you, right? Like that's perfectly fine. But when the other person, and I think that's the reason why I wanted to share this, because I feel like a lot of people get stuck in this conversation in the healing world. Oh, everything should be perfect, and everything should be just great, and soft, and peachy all the time. And it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in the real world. And the more I work on myself in this journey, and the more I recognize my humanity in this journey, I realized that part of the human experience is something that is raw and important for us to really to really recognize and accept, right? Like I feel like sometimes we just want to bypass the painful experiences, the difficulties, the struggle, because they are there, they exist, and they're part of our experience, and we want to avoid them because we're like, oh no, because in the spiritual, in the new age, in the spiritual world, we just got to be all love and light. And yes, we are love and light, we come from that. But when we come down here, we come down here to really get into the lessons. And I'm gonna tell you right now, like I have like my biggest lesson, like my biggest teacher right now is my mother-in-law. And that's just the way it is. And I struggle, and I have the negative emotions, and I cry, and I get angry, and I get upset, and I get all of these, and I feel hurt, and I feel all of these, and I'm allowing myself to feel all this because that's part of the experience, right? We are meant to be in that experience of rawness in our journey. Like if we just want to be like, oh, like, oh my god, everything is good, and you're always taking some sort of plant medicine, like cannabis or mushroom or something, like all the time, to try to get yourself to feel better all the time, and be like, you're just basically numbing yourself, right? And so yes, of course, we use these medicines to help us release the energy, to help us cry, to help us move through the energies and really and come to the other side feeling better. But we don't want to lie to ourselves to believe that we just have to be all happy go lucky all the time, right? We're here to experience challenges, and Mars retrograde is going to show us the challenges, especially when it comes down to in our interpersonal relationships, right? And so let me tell you the story. So now it's the time, storytelling time. So basically, like I was mentioning about my mother-in-law, we don't get along very well, whatever. So my husband and I, we were getting ready for a show. I was getting ready to go to Spirit Fest in Orlando. We were, getting everything ready. He was helping me put like the pendulums together, and like, putting them in the baggies, and we were like just planning everything, because since we were going to Orlando, even though it's not far away from Tampa, we still wanted to be able to have everything together so that we didn't have to drive back and forth. Why? Because even though it's not far away, the traffic is really difficult to maneuver, and especially on the weekends. So we just wanted to have everything on site, everything in the everything there, like available and everything. And so we were busy getting ready for a show. And so his mom was already kind of upset because of the fact that he wasn't able to take her to the temple. He usually takes her to the temple, or arranges something for an event like that they do every month, or something like that. And so he couldn't take her, and she was really upset, and she kept telling him like, oh, why are you helping her? Like, you should be taking me to the temple anyway. So it just got, and then he was like, okay, fine. Then long story short, then later that week, so that was on Monday. Later that week, there was some sort of situation with his family, and her mom decided that she wanted to get like a computer right away. And then she's like, I want to get a computer, and you gotta take me right now. And I was like, we can't have that. So I texted her and said, hey, listen, like right now we can't do that. We're in the middle of the show. We're getting ready for this and that, and he can take you next week. And so then that just basically escalated, and it got really difficult, right? Like it got really difficult, because she ended up walking over to our home, and she showed up, and it was just like this whole ordeal. And it was just dramatic, right? Like it was just drama, like novela, like, oh my gosh, right? Like I just feel like like if you've ever watched a soap opera or like a novela, like a Hispanic novela, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I was just like so flabbergasted, right? Because it was so obvious that the energy of Mars retrograde was activated, because it was like war, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to deal with this right now. Like I'm getting ready for a show. I want to go and have a good time. So my husband ended up taking her home, and whatever, and so it just kind of went from there. Um and so anyway, so it's like the issues around boundaries is really big when it comes down to Mars retrograde, which I feel like that was really activated for me last week. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do in these situations where just gets very extreme sometimes, because I feel like I'm gonna lose it, right? Like there's moments like I've dealt with a lot of anger in my life, and I've it's been something like I was an angry kid growing up, and I still experience, very intense emotions. And when anger comes, it's just like, it's very intense for me. So I just knew that if I interacted with her in any shape or form, I was just gonna like just like go off on her, right? And so like I was like, no. And so anyway, thankfully he took him home and took her home, and that was it. And mind you, this was a very uncomfortable time for me. But then I also started to reflect, and that's when all of the guilt came through, right? For me, like that day, that night I was thinking about it. It's like, oh my gosh, like you don't have this together yet, Jakara. Like, what the heck? Like, this is something, this needs to be fixed, right? And then I started thinking about it. Well, I've been trying to fix it for 6 years. It's like I have. Like, it's not like I haven't been actively trying. Like, I have tried actively to spend time with her and to try to do things with her and to try to be kind and compassionate with her. I have done all of those things. It's not like I haven't tried. It's not a lack of trying. Trust me when I tell you, y'all, that it hasn't been a lack of trying. But time and time again, there's also that continuous judgment, that continuous refusal of including me in conversations and only speaking in her language. And there's always been this like very like pushing me aside type thing. And so it's kind of, it gets to the point where you just don't want to participate anymore, right? Like, you don't want to be part of that anymore, because I matter, and I feel like I need to advocate for myself. So I say all of this to say, right? And the reason why I open up about this too is because I was thinking about Maria Sabina. And for those of you who are not familiar with Maria Sabina, she's known as a curandera, but she called herself a sabia, or a wisdom keeper. And she was from the Mazatec, and from Oaxaca, Mexico. And she was a huge, huge reason why we know about psilocybin mushrooms today. She was the reason why, the article in Life magazine in the 40s came out, because this man, I can't remember his name, and I don't care to remember his name anyway. And you can look it up on Google. You can find it, Maria Sabina, her story, and you'll find many articles about it. And this man really was looking for this mushroom, this psilocybin mushroom. And the whether you know this or not, the Mazatec people, they practiced for centuries, for millennia, the ceremonial connection with mushrooms in their homes. And it was just part of their culture. It was part of their spiritual practice. It wasn't necessarily something that they did just, it was just part of their life, right? And but they kept this in close, like they kept this away from the public. And so nobody would talk about this except for between at home between them. And so when this man was able to crack Maria Sabina, and she introduced him to the mushrooms and everything, to the psilocybin mushrooms, then he basically brought a lot of havoc into her life. Like, she was basically ostracized from her actual community, because all these people started coming over. But even before that, she had so many issues. Like, she actually had she was married at some point, and had children. And one of her husband, like, actually she got married twice, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was twice. And then one of her husbands, I think, passed away, and the other one, I think, was really abusive to her. So she went through a lot of pain in her life. But yet, even though she went through a lot of pain, she was still practicing her ceremonial practices and her spiritual practices and her healing practices, and she was there for people, right? And so I really love her, because I just love her story. Because when I look at her essence and what she's been through, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just like Maria Sabina, like, she just went through her struggles like everyone else, but she still showed up for people. And so I say all of this to say to you that if you are struggling right now and you just had a meltdown because of Mars retrograde, I just want you to know that you're normal, you're human, and it's okay. And especially if you are someone who's in a leadership role, you are, showing up as a practitioner who is, holding space for people like I am. I just want you to know that it's okay. Those struggles that you're having are part of the journey. This is part of our journey of gathering our medicine. Like, I am literally gathering my medicine in this experience. And I hope that you recognize that for yourself, right? Like, you are gathering this. And I'm saying this for me too, y'all. Like, I'm saying this to you, but I'm saying this for me too. You are gathering your medicine at this time, and you are refining it. Every single breath, every single situation that you're going through, you're refining your medicine. And that's just what it is, right? You're human. You're not meant to be perfect. You're not meant to have this perfect life. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has everything figured out. It's just the way it is, right? And so, yeah, so I just kind of wanted to share that with y'all. I'm gonna be posting this for you to for you, obviously for this weekend, and so that you can watch this and listen to this. I hope that this helped you in some shape or form, like for me sharing this stuff, and so that you can let go of any judgment for yourself or for anything that's been happening right now. Just know that this is just part of the deal. As part of the Mars retrograde. I am posting on the link on the description below, so that you can go in and listen to a collective clearing, because let me tell you, it's been difficult. It's been rough. We are in the trenches here, and hey, that's just what it is, right? And so I'm just grateful that we get to talk about this, and I get to share this with you, right? And so it gave me something to talk about in the channel. It's like, this is something I can talk about in the channel today. And so I wanted to share that. So anyway, I love you all. I hope that you have a wonderful, beautiful rest of your weekend, and I will see you soon. Thank you, and namaste. We're closing circle now.